Hey everybody. So recently I did the airbrushing video just talking about my experience after several years of doing airbrushing, just some tips that I picked up along the way. I had seen folks use these in the past and never thought really to pick one up because I'd had my own method just using an airbrush restorer, but I had a couple of comments on the channel talking about them, and it kind of reminded me to sort of look into it again. And so shortly after doing the video, I'd actually ordered a Magnasonic ultrasonic cleaner from Amazon, and these are fairly reasonably priced. I did a little bit of research and watching YouTube videos, and people did say the higher the hertz that's listed in the product information, the better it's going to work. I noticed at sort of the household use ones that were similar to this in their presentation that they tended to range from 40 to 60 hertz, and so I picked up a 60 hertz one because people just seemed to find that these worked well, and so that's kind of what I went with. Now, I'd never really heard of anybody doing one of these vids and saying they don't work, like in much of the research that I was looking at, and people have said everything from using just water in it to using Windex to using half water to half Windex to using airbrush cleaner, and I've heard of folks using other stronger solvents. Because the actual solution you put in there, for whatever reason, didn't seem to really change much on everybody's results. What I was going to do today is just use half Windex and half water, and so I kind of thought I was going a little bit middle of the road there. This actually doesn't snap shut. It's just lays shut like this. It has a bit of a light there. It makes everything glow. To be fair, the front part of the airbrush, like in particular, like I don't think this is extremely dirty. Like, I have used my airbrush a few times since last doing like a restoration, and there definitely is stuff on it, but I've included just about everything except the needle, the sort of air injection that goes on the bottom that connects to the air hose, and just the guard that locks the needle in place. Everything else I've put in. And part of that is I do have some pieces that have some paint on them and things on the outside, and I figured I'll get to see a little bit how it works. There is a fill line that's to about here. I have filled just above the airbrush, which is still a good, I guess, 1/4 of an inch below the fill line. What I'm going to do, I also saw in a video where somebody said, not many people said this, but one person said you're supposed to let it soak for a half hour to an hour. Never heard anybody say that, but I let it soak for an hour anyway. So half water, half Windex, soaking for an hour, and I'm going to do 2 3-minute cycles. Every time with this airbrush, there isn't a setting to essentially set it at 3, 5, 6 minutes. They just goes for 3 minutes. You hit the button again, it goes for 3 minutes. I've never run this yet, so that's my understanding. So hopefully this works, because I've not tested it. I mean, this is a complete unboxing. So I will run it for 3 minutes, and I'll fast forward through the time that it's running. So it stopped its 3-minute cycle. Doing a quick look in here, I do see debris already on the bottom of the white container. There is some black paint on the outside of the holder, the guard that goes on the back of this, that is still on there. If it's still on after the second cycle, I'll point that out and show it, but so far it does look like something's starting to work in there, but I'm not going to do a thorough inspection until after the second 3-minute cycle. So, I'll do one more time here. So I've taken the camera off here just so I can get a closer look at the inside. So it does look a bit dirty in there. This was brand new, obviously, if you can see that in there. That's just black stuff that's sort of on the bottom. This is that piece I was telling you about, this black sort of piece of paint on here. I just kind of put it in there just to see whether it would have taken it off. It's funny, it just sort of flaked right off, which I guess is an indication of it working to some degree, but it didn't, you know, fall off on its own. I'm not sure how much I should really expect from it. I suppose if I just rinse these parts with water, which what I would do anyway, that would have just fell right off. Just gonna take a look at more stuff in here, and then at the bottom. Sorry, have that off camera there. This looks to still have a bit of paint on it. What I'll do is I'll do a quick rinse off and just see if this stuff just sort of comes right off with water now. The outside of this looks to be fairly clean, although it wasn't really that dirty before. It was more the inside I was concerned about. I see like paint in there for sure. So in the light here you can see some stuff did come off. It's probably hard for you to see on camera, but there are little particles of paint in there that I definitely see have come off just on their own with this. What I'm going to do is just quickly rinse this stuff off and just see again, just by rinsing it into sort of a white bowl, how much just comes off of it with water. So I've rinsed it in water, and there are some flakes of stuff that are starting to appear just as I disturb it around a little bit here and there, not a tremendous amount. What I have done is I've just grabbed one of these, they're sort of like a gum, I guess they're like kind of like a flosser. There's a dentist, I think for oral health, and I bought the pack because somebody recommended using them to clean airbrushes as a really cheap thing. I know that they also sell specific things that you can use, kits, but I'm just using this just to see what might come out. In particular, I'm kind of interested in this piece, which is the nozzle of the airbrush. So not a whole lot is coming out of it, although using it, there's a little bit on the edge paint right here. I'm just going to use a toothpick. It still seems to be in there, not taking it off. I mean, it's not hard to get off if you identify it, but it's interesting. There doesn't seem to be too much in here. Now I don't know what that's an indication of, but because I didn't really see that much come out of the airbrush. It might have been that I just had this cleaner than I thought. I mean, clearly some stuff is coming off. So I do have some paint that was in the cup. Let me see if I can best... I'm in a weird position with the camera here, but I do have some paint that was on the side of the cup here, if you can see that from when I did an airbrush session last. You see how it is paint that does come off. Now it didn't actually come off with soaking in the Windex for about an hour, half hour to an hour, closer to an hour. it didn't come off, and then with 2 sessions in this machine, you know, this is obviously too early to make a conclusion because I've just opened this thing. Like, my experience with this is almost none, but my impression is that this is likely good as something to do on a regular basis, to keep debris and paint out of your airbrush. I don't really think this would actually handle a major clog, or a major amount of paint, like some sort of problem, which you're not really supposed to get. I mean, like, you're supposed to prevent that situation from happening. But, you know, like, I think it likely is good and great if you do it on a regular basis. It clearly did take stuff out. I mean, all kinds of little particles, you know, came out. You can see it here, like all of this stuff in there, like that's come out, and there was stuff inside here as well. And so, yeah, a fair bit. So I think it's good. I'm glad I got it, but it doesn't work as well if you really need a good clean, like on the inside, and like you have a large amount, you know, just with at least two sessions. Maybe if I just kept doing it over and over, it would get there. I don't know. I still like and I'm not, you know, I'm not wed to this Restore chemical that I'd recommend to everybody, but I still like the fact that exists, and I could use that because it just turns all the paint to jelly, and just, you know, it basically makes it so it's really easy to remove. And it just does a really, really thorough clean. Like, you would never see that bit of dried paint that I just showed in the cup remain there, and I wouldn't have to scrape it with a toothpick to get it off. It would just be right off. I mean, and so yeah, so this is interesting. You know, it's a good product. I do recommend it. I can't compare it to other ones because it's the Magnasonic, because it's the only one that I've used. It definitely works. The degree of working seems to be you know, less than what I would experience with a chemical restorer, but probably better, more convenient, and better to use overall, and cheaper in the long run to use on a regular basis. And you probably don't need to use the restorer as much if you keep your airbrush clean and use this more often. So that's my take. Take it for what you will. Okay, so that is the review of the Magnasonic ultrasonic cleaner for an airbrush.